All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 53 of the Fat Cats podcast. Today it is just me. No Ward to be found. He had to punt on the day, so I figured post draft we have to put something out there for you guys. We are live streaming right now on Instagram, so I'll be looking back and forth, answering questions. We had some people send in some questions before we started the podcast, so we'll be answering those as well. Probably more so throughout than the chat because it's now that I'm doing it way harder to do both than I realized. Um, but episode 53 got an awesome episode for you guys. Before we get into it, I do want to wish a happy graduation weekend to Madison, to Colby G, to Kyle, and to Trav Z. Congrats all you guys and anybody else who's graduating college or high school anytime soon. Congrats to everybody. Today is May the 2nd, for timestamp. And like I said, super fun episode for you guys. Obviously, going to start off with first favorite and forgotten. Going to do weekly game balls. We'll see how it goes without Wade. Probably a little bit less back and forth. I'm not going to talk to myself about it, but got some top stories to go over with you guys, and then super draft heavy. This episode got a lot of winners, got a lot of losers of this draft. I love my Steelers draft, but before we get into it, remind you guys find us on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcast. Just type in the Fat Cats Podcast and then Instagram and TikTok at Fat Cats Pod. Starting out with first favorite and forgotten. My first is unfortunately Kendrick Green, who was a second round pick or third round pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2019 or 2020. Played guard, tried to move to center, never played a snap really for us. So unfortunately, Kendrick Green is my first for episode 53. My favorite is Marquise Pouncey. One of the greatest centers of all time. You know, follows a lineage of great Steelers centers. I got to grow up watching this guy. One of my favorite Steelers of all time. And then my forgotten is Navarro Bowman, who was a hero on the 49ers defense the year that they made the run to the Super Bowl. He was probably the second best player on that defense. And a lot of people forget about him. He was a great football player. And like I said, one of the heroes of that Super Bowl run that they made. Um, Game balls. Got game balls going out. Yeah, Navarro was a beast. Thanks, Billy. I appreciate you watching, man. Weekly game balls going out. I got three. Kind of a jointed one here. Jalen Brunson and Tyrese Maxey are getting my first game ball. This is real hoops. If you haven't been watching the 76ers Knicks series, this is real basketball. This is why you watch. Um, Obviously, you're always going to have Embiid foul baiting a little bit, but these two came to play in this series. It's going to six. It's in Philly tonight. Going to be a super fun watch. Tyrese Maxey scored 7 points down the stretch to tie up the game to send it to overtime in Game 5 in New York. Um, that's the only reason this series is still alive because of former Wildcat Tyrese Maxey. But Jalen Brunson also broke the Knicks' playoff scoring record for a single game in Game 4. So those two have just been incredible watches throughout this playoffs. And then my second game ball is going to Dilworth Pub. Now I know a lot of you people are like, "What the hell is Dilworth Pub?" It is a restaurant, cafe kind of deal here in Charlotte. They put up a sign before the draft, telling Panthers owner David Tepper to let the GM and the scouts do the drafting. He walks in to the restaurant, removes a young man's hat off his head, and starts yelling at people. Um, they won for that, just outright there. And then they put up another sign a couple days ago that was also hilarious, welcoming all of the new Panthers, telling Tepper that he did a good job. Shout out to the scouts and everything. But Dilworth Pub probably got a lot of business thanks to David Tepper. And David Tepper, man, he continues to lose PR battles between throwing water on a fan in Jacksonville, this all the stuff around his time in Pittsburgh. Um, David Tepper probably needs to hire a PR team, and I would be that guy for you, David. Don't worry about it. Just some top stories real quick, and then we'll get into predominantly draft talk. And anybody in chat, if you have any questions, Yes, Logan, that's hilarious. If you guys have any questions in chat, just drop them in and I'll try to get through them. But like I said, we've got a lot of questions from a lot of people sending them before the show. Um, but top stories, RJ Davis returning for what seems like his fifth or sixth year at Carolina. I think it's only his fourth. But RJ Davis will be back for a senior season. One of the best players in America, probably second in the running, second or third in the running for National Player of the Year last year. Carolina gets their top guard back, which is awesome if you're a Carolina fan, not so awesome for the rest of the country. Um, the Canes advance. They beat the Islanders in five. Uh, I was at one of the games with Ward and Fry and Connor James. Electric. Out from the game tying goal to I think this was game two. So from the game tying goal to when we got in the truck was like 15 minutes of the most electric like time of my life. It was awesome. Um, is his girl coming back to in regards to RJ Davis? I think she is. I don't think he has dibs on her though. I think that Caleb Love might have something to say about that, but we won't get into speculation here on the Fat Cats. That was a great one, Logan. I appreciate you listening, dog. But yeah, like I said, Canes advance versus the Islanders. Chiefs extend Travis Kelce 2-year deal to make him yearly the highest paid tight end in NFL history, which he deserves. Zeke, a reunion with the Cowboys. The Cowboys need a running back desperately. Is Zeke the answer? Probably not. But 1 year is $3 million. Why not take a chance to see if Zeke's got something left in the tank? And then today, my Pittsburgh Steelers did not pick up fifth-year options for Justin Fields or Najee Harris. Justin Fields was expected. Najee Harris, not so much. I think a lot of people thought that they'd get 2 more years out of Najee before he hits free agency. That's not the case. So this will be the last year that Najee Harris is under contract for the Pittsburgh Steelers. If you know me, you know my stance on running backs. Dime a dozen. You can find a running back delivering Amazon packages. If you have a good offensive line, which the Steelers now do, which we'll get into. If you have a good offensive line, you can find a running back easily, fairly easily. Just think on your roster, Jaylen Warren was an undrafted free agent, and you found an awesome running back. Real quick, I do want to do a Steelers breakdown of the draft. I know not everybody's a Steelers fan, but I'm a Steelers fan, so that's what we're going to talk about. With the first pick, the Steelers took in the first round, pick 20. Troy Fautanu fell to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So if you know me and you listen to any of our draft stuff, Troy Fautanu was my second favorite tackler or second favorite offensive tackle, excuse me, in the draft behind Joe Alt. He's now being labeled the tribal chief of Pittsburgh, so acknowledge him. But yeah, Troy Fautanu, super athlete. I said this, I think, in our mock draft. He's probably a top 5 athlete in the draft, regardless of position. And the Steelers got him. So the two back-to-back years, I think this is the first time since the 50s that the Steelers have taken tackle back-to-back years in the first round. And as a former big boy, could not be more excited. Acknowledge him, Colby. Logan Shoop asks, is the Justin Fields punt return, kick return rumors legit? A player said this. Jaylen Warren said this. So you got to think it's got some legs. No pun intended. But what I say, man, if you play for the Pittsburgh Steelers, you got to do anything you can to earn, snaps. Do I think it'll happen? Probably not. But worst case scenario, he said that, and people have to scout for it now. At least, I'll believe it when I see it. I think Billy said that. But and you got to think there's a world where Justin Fields beats out Russell Wilson to be QB1. QB1 ain't taking no special team snaps, dog. So we'll see. But I mean, if he's QB2, I guess. I mean, again, Jaylen Warren said it. I don't think he's just making it up. Um, but I mean, maybe the discussion was had and it was shot down pretty quickly, is what I would imagine. Um, but it is a funny story to say the least. In the second round, the Steelers got my favorite center in the draft behind JPJ, who is playing guard for the Raiders now, by the way. He's not even playing center. Zach Frazier out of West Virginia. Perfect fit. Got to take the hour, 15-minute drive from Morgantown to Pittsburgh to get to the facility. Nasty. He went 159-2 as a wrestler at in high school in West Virginia. He was a four-time state champion. Uh, just a grade A asshole. He's an ass kicker when he plays football. And my favorite story about him was last year for West Virginia. He broke his leg against Baylor. It was a 2-minute drill in the first half. West Virginia has no timeouts left, and he crawls off the field so they don't have to burn a timeout. Just a football guy. The Steelers got, one of my favorite players in the draft at 51, which is crazy. And then the third round, you turn around, you get Peyton Wilson at the end of it. You get Roman Wilson. So the Wilson brothers, we'll call them. But this whole draft, all in all, for the Steelers was awesome. One, because we got really good players who have produced in college. We didn't get athletes. We didn't get track stars. We got football players. And we also got guys that, it truly seems they know what it means to be a Pittsburgh Steeler, which is important when you draft for teams like this. Just reading the chat real quick. Colby said, can't have your Lamar scout team quarterback get hurt returning punts. That's hilarious. In regards to Fields. Yeah, I mean, I guess, but I mean, depending on who you ask, some would say that Justin Fields is a better football player than Lamar Jackson. I think there's a guy in this chat right now that might say that. We got CT ESPN rumors, who, if you don't know, is Antonio Brown's new media outlet, saying Steelers are close to landing a top receiver, Higgins, IU, Debo. Who else do you think AB is talking about? Um, I think AB just says stuff, man. He said he called the Stephon Diggs trade, but I think he posted an edit of Stephon Diggs in every NFL uniform that needed a wideout, and then he said he called it. So I'm a big believer when I see it, guy, when it comes to trades, especially in the NFL. Alex Novak is speaking up in chat talking about. I'm not gonna say who said that Justin Fields is better than Lamar Jackson, but just know he's commented on this chat. Um, Probably a little bit of a joke there, but Steelers fans, man, we think a certain way about our guys. Um, Winners and losers of the draft, real quick. I can't get over that. Winners and losers. I think winners. Bo Nix walked out a winner on draft night, the first night of the draft. He was a second round pick to a lot of people, and he ends up going 12 to the Broncos, which is nuts. I never thought in a million years Bo Nix will be a first round quarterback. And I will go on record, Bo Nix will not be a good quarterback in the NFL. Not because of his tape, not because of his numbers, whatever. He did an interview before the draft talking about why he transferred from Auburn to Oregon. And he said that people in the South, talking about SEC fans, have a unhealthy obsession with football. My quarterback should have an unhealthy obsession with football, and he's knocking fans for having that. If you're knocking fans, that means you don't have it. I don't want Bo Nix playing for me. His dad played for Auburn. He was like the golden child coming out as a freshman. Never proved it at Auburn. Goes to Oregon where they get 5,000 fans most games, and then he plays well. Once people start getting on him, and once this becomes an unhealthy obsession like it is for a lot of Broncos fans, I think he might wilt under the pressure. I don't think Bo Nix is going to be a good quarterback. Just reading the chat here for everybody. Switch teams and Lamar is out of the league is crazy. Bo Nix, a huge winner. Big first and only NFL contract, Novak says in regards to Bo Nix. I think me and Novak share a very similar stance on Bo Nix. I don't think he's a very good quarterback at the end of the day. Week one starter, Zach Wilson or Bo Nix. That's tough. Zach Wilson stinks. Like, let's call it spade a spade. He's not good at football. But I just went on a rant of why Bo Nix is not good at football. I say Nix just because they spent the 12th overall pick on him. I think they gave up a 6th or a 7th rounder for Zach Wilson. So I have to go Nix. But I mean, that's two quarterbacks that I don't think are very good. But while we're here, I do want to say shout out to Billy Bash, man. If you're in chat, go check him out. He's got a podcast. It's called Off the Glass, one of the best NBA podcasts you'll listen to, hands down. One of my favorite podcasts just in general. But go check out Billy Bash and the Off the Glass crew. Him and his co-host do a terrific job. No free shout outs. Billy, the check cleared, big dog. But another winner I thought were the Bears. Obviously, you walk out with Caleb Williams, but to get Roma Dunze to fall to 9 was crazy to me. They probably got this, in my opinion, the second best receiver in the draft. Kyle Zeifert's going to have a fit when he hears this, but I think Odunze has all the check, like every box you got to check. Odunze checks it. So to get him at 9, I thought they did a terrific job. Um, Reading chat one more time. It's going to be worse than Riddler. That's crazy. How many years is J.C. Latham rostered in the league? I will go on record. And J.C. Latham, if you don't know, 7th overall pick to the Tennessee Titans, played at Alabama. J.C. Latham will be a healthy scratch by year 3 in the NFL. I don't know if he'll get cut, but like we saw Cleveland Farrell with the Raiders, he will be a healthy scratch by year 3. He is not a good football player whatsoever. Winner number 3 to me is Howie Roseman, Eagles GM. Me and Novak have talked about this. I think Nick Wright maybe had a segment on this on ESPN. Howie Roseman is not some draft guru. He just goes on PFF and takes the highest rated guy on PFF at the time. Um, he's not like some super scout. He just takes the highest rated guy to PFF, and then everybody on PFF is like, "Oh my god, this guy knows how to draft. This guy gets the best football players." He just looks at what you're saying. Obviously, you're going to say that you had this guy rated 9th and he fell to 18. Howie Roseman is, again, like we say, he's a little bit overrated when it comes to the old. He's a genius when he's drafting. He just gets the top rated guys. Um, Brant says he always goes BPA because they have a filled out roster. That's why it looks stacked. That is fair. Like when you're so good, you don't need to draft need. Like they have players at every position. But he's missed on a lot of guys too. Like there's a lot of guys that were supposed to be great and he took them. They weren't great. Like people Nolan Smith out of Georgia, the edge, fell to him, I think, in the 20s. And people were talking about how Howie Roseman was this innovator and how he was so lucky to have this guy fall to him. I don't know how did he play last year? Did Nolan Smith play snaps for the Eagles last year? I don't know. He could have. I don't know what his stats looked like. I didn't hear Nolan Smith's name thrown around whatsoever last year. Jordan Davis was a great football player at Georgia in high school, whatever. When's the last time you heard somebody talk about Jordan Davis, man? And again, good football players, but Howie Roseman gets a lot more credit than I think he deserves on, especially draft wise. Salary cap wise, the Eagles front office is incredible. Losers of the draft, Spencer Rattler is my biggest loser of the draft. Um, Reports came out that teams watched the QB1 show, or well, not QB1, but when he was in high school, and said that was character concerns. I promise you, me especially, but I'm sure everybody in this chat, if you had a camera crew following you around when you were 18 years old, I wouldn't have got that job. I can promise you that. No, I'm not saying that he's bad. I'm saying that he was the biggest loser. I thought he should have went higher than the 5th round pick that he selected to go to in New Orleans. I thought he was a day 2 guy personally. Rattler can make every throw on the field. That's not the problem. I don't. I mean, obviously he's smaller, and then apparently there's character concerns because he was 18 years old and on a TV show. But another loser to me is TJ Tampa. I mean, there was mocks where he was sneaking in the end of the first round. He was like a lock for day 2. Ends up going day 3, which we'll talk about him later and his fit with the Ravens. But TJ Tampa was a guy who I thought was going to go a lot higher. Troy Franklin, same deal. Like there was, I know Colby G knows better than anybody. Um, he was mocked to go to the Panthers with a lot of mocks at 33 or 39. Um, so Troy Franklin, I think he ended up going day 3 is another big loser. And then as we talked about, David Tepper might be the biggest loser of this draft. Like he just cannot win a PR battle whatsoever. Um, Colby G says people are wondering, can Spencer Rattler make every throw? Um, I think he can. I think he's got all the arm talent in the world. Um, Called him a bad football player. That's hilarious. Brant says Troy Franklin has a lot of separation issues. Why he fell Panthers don't need a wide receiver that can't get separation. I agree with that part. I'd be lying if I said that I've deep dove into Troy Franklin tape. I do have a draft expert in this chat now who just dropped an eyeball emoji. KZ is my draft expert. He was high on Troy Franklin, so I always go to him, especially with receivers. And looks like for one of the few times that the league didn't agree with KZ on in terms of where a receiver was ranked. Um, KZ dropped a lot of questions before we started here, and I really want to get to them because they were some really fire questions. First one he sent was who was my favorite day 3 pick and why? And guys, feel free to answer these questions as I go through them. Would love to hear what you guys have to say. I have four of my favorite day 3 guys. Kyrie Jackson was the first one. He was the guy that I wanted the Steelers to take when it got to them at 119, I believe, in the fourth round. Um, I think we talked. I think Ward. This was one of Ward's winners. Kyrie Jackson's a super long corner, no diddy. Makes plays on the balls, no diddy, and just he produced in college. He played at Alabama. He started at Alabama, went to Oregon, started 2 years at Oregon. So the production was there, the ball skills were there, and the length is there again, no diddy. But Kyrie Jackson was one of my favorite players in this draft. I couldn't believe that he was a day 3 pick, to be honest with you. Javon Baker ended up going to the Patriots. Javon Baker may have had the quote of the draft, and I probably should have said that he was one of the winners of the draft. He said, we want everybody, all the Patriots fans to show up, get your popcorn ready, because I make people in wheelchairs stand up. That's like a TO level quote. That's I don't care what you think about me. I'm a great football player quote. And you have to be a great football player to get away with saying that. So Javon Baker was again was one of my favorite players. I know KZ's one of his favorite players. Another guy who started out at Alabama, went to go play at UCF and balled out for 2 years. Patriots got a really good receiver here. Super excited to see what he can do in New England. TJ Tampa, another one of my favorite day 3 picks. Me and Novak talk about this all the time. Um, every time we like a player, the Ravens somehow get him. TJ Tampa was a guy I really liked from Iowa State. And again, the Ravens got him. And then lastly, a name that probably not a lot of people know on here, Travis Glover, played at Georgia State. He's a tackle. The Packers got him in the 7th round. He was the guy I was looking like later. If the Steelers hadn't went Mason McCormick, like they probably go get Travis Glover. He's got positional versatility. Now, obviously, he's a 7th round pick. You're not expecting a star. You're not even really expecting a guy to make a roster. But I think Travis Glover legit has the tools to be able to do so. Kyle's second question. Triple Diddy is insane. I had to throw it in there. I know you guys would have made fun of me if I didn't throw in the Diddies. Colby says JT Sanders, tight end from the University of Texas at Austin, is his favorite day 3 pick. Panthers fan, if you couldn't tell. Colby, let's talk about them throwing him an 84 instead of giving him the 0 that he obviously deserves. Brant's favorite player on day 3, Christian Boyd from UNI, stud for sure day 3. Brand, I'm not going to lie to you. You're going to educate me on Christian Boyd. I'm not familiar with this game. The Triple Diddies obviously did a lot of impact on this chat. Brant agrees Tampa shouldn't have fallen where he did. Second question KZ posed, which again, shout out KZ for these awesome questions, man. Rank the best to worst situations for every round 1 quarterback. So 6 quarterbacks taking the first 12 picks, which again is crazy. And every team that picked after 15 was so happy to see this because it just made so many more great football players get pushed down the board for after the top 3 quarterbacks, or some might say after the top 1 quarterback were not great quarterbacks. But this isn't who I think is going to have the best year. This isn't who I think is going to win the most games. It is purely from the outside looking in who stepped into the best situation to win football games. First, to me, Caleb Williams walked into the best situation in Chicago. They've been building this beast, and shout out to the Panthers for helping them build this beast. Sorry, Colby, don't look at me. Chicago is built to win. Like they just need a quarterback to do it, and we'll see if Caleb Williams is that guy. I think JJ McCarthy walked into a really good spot in Minnesota. And again, I don't think he's the second best quarterback in this draft by any means, but Minnesota has great receivers on deck ready for him. They spent money on defense. They've got the offensive line to protect him. I think if J.J. McCarthy can play good, solid football and not make mistakes, that this Minnesota team can be really good. Um, by default, I put Jaden Daniels in Washington, and Ward wouldn't be happy with me when I say this, but I don't think he walked into a great situation in Washington. I think he walked into a solid situation. I think if he plays like a second overall pick, that they can be good. But their rosters compared to Minnesota and Chicago, it's not even really close in my opinion. Michael Penix, I put him at fourth. He gets to sit, but he's probably him and Williams are probably the two only quarterbacks in this draft that you draft not to sit. Um, obviously he's going to sit behind Kirk Cousins. They gave Kirk Cousins all that money, and a lot of people said on draft night, best case for Atlanta is Penix doesn't play till he's like 30 years old. Like, obviously you're going to ride with Kirk as long as you can. Penix is already 24. He's had the 3 ACL surgeries. I think if Penix goes anywhere on this list except for Atlanta, they're higher up. Um, Drake May, New England, that team is not good. That team is about as bad as you can get from top to bottom. They don't have, I mean, in chat, can anybody name 15 New England Patriots off the top of your head right now? Um, I don't think so. New England's a rough spot, but I think Bo Nix, like I said, is in the worst situation because Sean Payton's in win now mode. They just had to clear the entire roster for salary cap reasons. I don't think Nix has what it takes. I think again, Sean Payton wants to win football games. He's going to put him. He's not going to protect Bo Nix, and Bo Nix needs a lot of protection. They don't have the playmakers. Jerry Judy's not in town anymore. They're shopping old dude from SMU, the wideout, Cortland Sutton. So I don't think Bo Nix is in a great position to succeed, and with his football ability, that makes it even worse. Um, Juju eyeballs. Juju has some problems that he might need to take care of before we start listing him off as a New England Patriot. Colby says that uh, they should have erased Burns' history forever as number 0. Unreal. Brant ranks them. JJ's in the best spot. Caleb's in the second best spot. Jaden Daniels in third. Drake May in fourth, I believe. Penix in fifth because he's stuck sitting, and then Bo at sixth. He also says Demario Davis is their wide receiver 2 right now, if that tells you anything, which is hilarious. John Castleton in the chat. Are the Jaguars the worst drafting team of the past 5 years? They also take picks that they could get in later rounds, and they've taken a running back in the past 5 or 6 years. Um, there's a lot of teams, Johnny Boy, that are bad at drafting. I think a lot of people just get their eyes set on prospects and think that they won't fall. Um, I also think that a lot of teams and GMs and scouts think that their football club is in a lot better position than they actually are. I think a lot of teams draft based off need when really they just need to take the best player on the board because they're not a good football team. Chase on pick, obviously, in Novak's head. Um, Jaguars, though, not a good drafting football team. You are correct, John. KZ also asks, are the Bears a lock for the playoffs? I like this question. This will tell me a lot about what you think about Caleb Williams. Are the Bears a lock for the playoffs this season? You look at that NFC North, man. That's a tough division to play football in. I teeter. I think that they're probably, a 9-10 win team this season. Just looking at it on paper, does that get you into the playoffs in the NFC this year? I think they could make a wild card, man. But I still haven't slotted as the third best team in this division. I really do. What do you guys think? Bears going to make it? Um, that's what I think. I think Caleb Williams. I think he will be a good quarterback. I don't think this year he's going to do anything crazy. Um, I think they can make a wild card push, but I'm going to go on record and say no, they don't make the playoffs. Actually, um, KZ, man, this is our draft guru for a reason. Early look at the 25 draft class. We just drafted last week. Early look at the 25 draft class. Favorite prospects and any rising quarterbacks. I've got my 5 favorite prospects coming into next year, ranked 1 through 5 in order. My favorite prospect by far, and people will call me crazy. I think this guy's wide receiver 1 in this class this year that just got drafted. Luther Burden out of Missouri is the best receiver. He was the best receiver in college football last year. He's a true sophomore going into his true junior year at Missouri. Um, I think he could be the #1 pick. I really do. I think Luther Burden is one of the best athletes I've ever seen. He's one of the best receivers I've ever seen in college. Um, so keep a lookout on Mizzou this year. Even though they have that dork coaching for them, I think Luther Burden will be one of the best players in college football, if not the best player in college football. Um, Brant says it depends on what color Caleb Williams' nails are, as if he'll be good or not. Vikings spending too much money, too much time on PFF. That's why his draft classes suck. That's hilarious. Um, Mason Smith, I think is his name, from Michigan, is a Bam Bam top dog, correct? D tackle, if we're talking about the same guy. Can we hear from this draft expert, KZ? Would love to ask a few questions about his biggest big board, especially Byron Murphy. If you didn't see Byron Murphy's post getting drafted shenanigans, go check it out. It was pretty funny. If you haven't seen it. But my favorite prospects, obviously Luther Burden one. James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee is a really good edge prospect. I, kind of tend not to give Tennessee guys their props, but James Pierce Jr. is a damn good football player. Will Johnson, Michigan cornerback, is another one of my favorite prospects. Deion Walker is my favorite defensive tackle prospect. He plays at Kentucky. I've watched every game of this guy's career. He's 6'8", 350 pounds. Reminds me a lot of Calais Campbell in the body, but he gives you a lot more pass rush than Calais did, especially early in his career. And then Will Campbell plays tackle for LSU, is another one of my favorite prospects coming up in 25. Talking about the quarterbacks, which KZ's asking about this because he's a Giants fan and he has given up on Danny Dimes. There can be a lot of improvement of draft stock over the season. Obviously, you saw guys like Joe Burrow was a 5th round pick coming into his senior year. Baker Mayfield was not super highly touted. Um, there's a lot of stories like that. I think guys, and I'll probably get hammered in chat for this. I think Jalen Milroe will watch his stock go significantly higher than it is. Look what happened with Penix at Washington. I think Jalen Milroe can have a very similar last year that Penix had. I think he's better with his legs, but I watched that spring game, man, and I know you can't take everything away from a spring game, but Jalen Milroe was slicing and dicing in that spring game. Riley Leonard transferred from Duke to Notre Dame. I've been saying for 2 years, Riley Leonard is an NFL level quarterback. I'm hoping that he goes to Notre Dame and proves that. Cam Ward transferred from Washington State to Miami. Another guy you talk about can make every throw on the field. His legs are there. It's all between the ears for him. Can he, make a second read? Can he pre-diagnose defenses? Can he take care of the football? He had a lot of fumbles last year, and I think he led the FBS in fumbles last year as a quarterback. I was big on this guy as well last year. Drew Alar out of Penn State kind of made me look like a fool last year, but that kid has all the talent in the world. I think that, he could make a huge jump going into his junior year. But we will see, man. There's probably a lot of guys that we're not even thinking of that are going to be 1st round picks by the time it's all said and done. Think a guy like Xavier Legette, man. Who was talking about Xavier Legette before the season? Comes out as the 32nd overall pick. So there's a lot of guys we're not talking about, but those 5 guys, I feel confident in saying will be 1st round picks next year. Let's go through the chat real quick. Will Campbell thoughts? I think he's huge. But there's a lot of things to clean up when it comes to Will Campbell. I think pass pro he struggles with a lot, but another guy you talk about, ass kicker in the run game. What are your top 3 college football teams for next year? That's tough. I think Carson Beck's going to take a big jump for Georgia. Always a safe bet. I like Texas this year, and Ohio State killed the transfer portal. So I'll go Georgia, Texas, Ohio State. Um, let's see. Would love for KZ's G-Man to take Bill Row 1-1. That would be hilarious. That would be scenes for the chat. Um, I wouldn't touch Milrow with a 10-foot pole, unfortunately. Wonder why. Um, get the Drew talk out of here. Omar is not a prospect anymore for me. He will have to prove it to me. I get it, but I've watched this guy for so many years, and he made me look like a fool last year. I stood on this podcast and told everybody Penn State would be the second best team in the Big Ten last year because Drew Lar was going to be such a good football player, and that was not the case. So I I'm not going to cut my losses. I'm not going to take my medicine. I'm going to die on the Drew Lar train. No Diddy on the train port. Um, what are the Raiders going to do with Bowers? Now, I've heard this a lot. Fry asked me this when they took him. I'm sure every Raiders fan in America is saying, we took Michael Mayer in the second round last year. We don't have a quarterback. Guys, there's no quarterbacks left on the board to take. Brock Bowers was supposed to be a top 5 pick. You got him at 13. He's by far the best player on the board. When a top 5 pick falls to you in the draft, you take him. I think Brock Bowers, run game, ass kicker, pass game, he's one of the best receiving tight ends in college football history. I think obviously we don't have, Aiden O'Connell is your quarterback. You're not going to be throwing the ball 20, 25, 30 times a game. This team is going to be a downhill run first football team. And you've got Bowers, again, ass kicker, and Michael Mayer, ass kicker in the run game. They're going to live in 12 personnel. They're going to have two of the best tight ends in football, and they're going to pound it down people's throat. No Diddy. And they're probably going to win some football games with it. Zamir White is going to have an incredible fantasy football season. I guarantee it. With Josh Jacobs being out of town, they're going to run the ball 40 or 45 times a game. I believe it for sure. And Brock Bowers goes into that. You get to play action off of it. He'll be one of the better players of this rookie class, right? Year one, even with the lack thereof quarterback situation going on in Las Vegas. Um, moving on from draft, we're talking about the Knicks. Um, Kyle Seifert, huge Knicks fan. Did the Knicks seal their fate with that Game 5 loss? I don't think so. I think you go back to New York. There's no chance they're winning this game tonight. Game 6 in Philly. There's zero chance they win this game. They'll have to win this game by 20 points to win by 2. But I think you go back to the Garden. Game 7, coin flip. Who wants it? I think that they, for sure, I think it's a 50-50 pick 'em when it goes back to New York. I would bet the house that Philly wins tonight. Um, and then is there a slight chance to win tonight? Absolutely not. Logan Shoup sent me a few questions over. He asked, what is the Panthers draft grade? Now, I'd be lying if I said I knew every single pick the Panthers took, but I saw their first 3. I'd give them a B minus, B, somewhere in that range. I think getting XL Xavier would get in the first round was huge. I don't know if he would have been there at 33, to be honest. I think the Bills probably would have taken him over Coleman. So I like getting Xavier Leggett. If you haven't seen a Xavier Leggett interview, you're missing out. It's one of the funniest things in the world. Um, but yeah, getting XL, trading up to get the running back out of Texas. His name escapes my mind, but the running back out of Texas who the Cowboys wanted. I'm not big on trading up for a running back, but by all accounts, that guy is incredible. Um, and Panthers need a running back. Like they need playmakers. They need good football players. And he's a good football player. Getting the tight end, Jatavian out of Texas, another really good football player. I would have loved for them to address center, but it seems like they think they have a plan at center. So we'll see how that goes. But overall, probably B minus B. XL comp and opinion. I said I think Xavier Legette's going to be an awesome football player. Obviously, he's got the DK, AJ Brown build. Didn't have the drop problem that DK had in college. Probably, I don't know, 40 times, but you know, I don't know if he's as athletic as those two guys. He's also not as tall as those two guys. But compact receiver who, I mean, he's built like a linebacker, and yeah, I think it was a 4.35 that he ran. I think he's gonna be awesome. Obviously, need to work on the route running. Who doesn't need to work on route running coming out of college? I think as much as I don't like Deontay Johnson, I think Deontay Johnson being with him, Deontay Johnson has an incredible work ethic. He's one of the best route runners in the NFL for a reason. I think being on the other side of a guy like that's really going to help open up this offense and open up the production for Xavier Legette. And then Panthers season prediction. I don't have their schedule in front of me. Just off the top of my head, I would guess between a 3 and 6 win season. Um, and then Ben Miskelly also asked me to make Panthers fans feel better about Trevin Wallace. Trevin Wallace is a 20-year-old athletic freak out of the University of Kentucky. He plays off-ball linebacker, called plays for Kentucky last year. He's the Mike. He'll probably play Will, probably play you know, play Will for the Panthers. I don't expect him to have the green dot in year one, but you're getting an athletic freak who in the run game has great nose for the ball. He makes big plays. He gets interceptions, fumble on the ground. He returned a blocked kick for a touchdown his freshman year. He's got an innate ability to be around the football. I didn't see him in pass coverage a lot at Kentucky, um, but he showed in the Senior Bowl, the recent Senior Bowl, that he was able to, man to man guard running backs and smaller tight ends. No, I think it'll be a problem when you have the 6'5", 6'6" tight ends who are also athletes. I don't think he can guard those guys, but I think you're getting a really solid off-ball linebacker with, an athletic forward that he could be a freak. Like he has the ceiling to be a high level starter in the NFL. The floor is a little bit lower than you'd like for where you picked him at, but I think if you can coach a guy up, and if there's one thing Panthers fans know that they can, Panthers are always going to have good linebackers. I think Trevin Wallace, they'll be able to shape him into a really good linebacker. Just looking at the chat here, Knicks will win on a Josh Hart offensive board in Game 7. Josh Hart is a board menace. Tread carefully here with KZ in chat. Um, Novak says positional value, X mark, good football player, check mark. That's all you're trying to build, man. You want to build a roster full of good football players. If you have two guys in the same position, hey, be a good football coach and find where these guys are the best at. Colby puts ... I mean, what Colby? Tell me what we're expecting for Panthers fans, man. Like, what do we think the Panthers season looks like? That's all the questions we have right now. I'll probably stick around for a few more minutes after we get off of here and answer some questions in chat. But that was episode 53 of the Fat Cats podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed it. A little bit different, obviously, without Ward. Don't have anybody to, bounce ideas off of, tell stories to. But I really appreciate everybody who was in the chat, hanging along with me. No Diddy. But I had a super fun experience doing this. Maybe we do this more. If Ward can't do it, instead of punting, just I get on here. But episode 53, remind you guys, find us on Apple Podcasts, find us on Spotify, find us on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok at Fat Cats Pod. You guys are the best. I really appreciate you. If you made it this far, spam Wade for a beer. That's it. Peace.